betray you. I want to learn how to love people who stab you in the back. I want to learn how to love people who talk about you behind your back. That's reckless love. That's reckless love. I want to learn how to love recklessly like God. Can we give the praise team a round of applause? We're starting a brand new series. I always get excited at the beginning of a brand new series, but I'm really excited about this particular series because this particular series is dealing with something that I believe all of us will experience if we have not already experienced at some time in our lives. And so it's something that is somewhat deep.
Yes.
And so we're gonna jump off into something that's deep, but it's something that is necessary. I think the church needs to speak on matters like this. In fact, I think that the church's role in this particular area has been diminished. And I think that no one can play a role in this particular arena like the church because it's dealing with not only the physical, but it's also dealing with the spiritual. And when you look at what's going on when it comes to what we're going to talk about in this series, which is mental health, the government is pretty much aiming at the physical. And we know that the physical cannot properly be fixed if you don't deal with the spiritual. And so I believe that the church has the keys to deal with both the physical and the spiritual challenges within our society. I will let you know this, that I feel like in a sense I'm out of my league when it comes to dealing with mental health. I feel like I feel overwhelmed in a sense. I've been really engulfing myself in learning as much as I can about this topic. And I know that all of us, whether we want to admit it or not, all of us struggle with this at some point in time in our lives. And sometimes throughout the day we struggle with this. And so we want to tackle this from a spiritual standpoint, but we don't want to leave out the physical as well. And the disclaimer is that I'm nowhere near an expert when it comes to dealing with mental health. I'm still dealing with my own challenges even as we speak. And so I just know that I'm not adequate other than the fact that God has equipped me to share His word. And so I'm trusting Him and the power of His Holy Spirit to do what I can't do, and that is to break down those strongholds that have people in bondage. Now, we do have a treat. Today is going to be different. Today is going to be different. Somebody said different.
Different.
I know we have in our mind, we have this concept of how church is supposed to be. And I think when we approach church from that standpoint, we put limits on our creativity and what God can do through our creativity. And so I want to break down those walls, right? I want to break down those walls. Because I believe that God has all types of ways to communicate His truth to His people. Sometimes it's through a preacher, but sometimes it's through other gifted individuals that are skilled in certain areas and certain arenas of life. And so we want to give opportunity for those individuals to allow God to use them to speak His truth. But before we get started, we do have another treat. As you guys know, the festival is just less than a couple of weeks away in Los Angeles. This little small orange church. So look, we have to learn how to appreciate our young people when they are willing to step up to the plate in this capacity. After Zion finishes with his song, I have another treat for you guys. The treat is you guys will have to hear me preach today. But even better than that, we have a group of young people, young adults, who are going to come up and they're going to talk about this whole mental health thing. And they're going to talk about it from their viewpoint. And it's going to be a little bit different because it's going to be similar to like a panel, a talk show. And, you know, the whole idea came as a result of my son coming to me and talking to me about some challenges that he sees among his peers. And I saw the same thing, and I said, you know what, let's work on something together. And just meeting the people that he spent the most time with, I'm humbled at what he's been able to accomplish with his circle of friends, his sphere of influence. That's always been a concern of mine, that my children would hook up with people who are going in the right direction. And these individuals that he's hooked up with were raised well, they're going in the right direction, and I'm telling you, I just want to learn from them. I just want to learn from them. And so after our guest artist, Zion, we're going to have Nate Harris, who is a double, he has 2 degrees. 2 degrees, this brother has 2 degrees. Listen to this. He has his own podcast called What Is Your Perspective that comes out every Sunday night, right? Every Sunday night. He has his real estate license. This brother is really doing big things, and I'm telling you, when it comes to brilliant minds, you guys are going to hear from some brilliant minds today, all right? And the other person is his sister, who happens to be dating my son, Ashlyn Harris. Just a beautiful, come on, give it up here. Just a beautiful, beautiful soul. I'm telling you, very intelligent, just, want to get it right. I love just working with people who want to get it right. And to her mom, you've done a good job with your children. Beautiful children. And then, last but not least, my son, who is also my best friend. I'm telling you, I'm proud of this dude right here. He challenges me like nobody else. He challenges me like nobody else. And not only is he the future of this church, he is the present of this church. And so they're going to come out and they're going to lead the rest of the service. They're going to introduce their special guests who have credibility on this topic. But right now, I don't want to hold this brother any longer. Let's give it one more time for Zion.
How y'all doing like February? What's up, My bad, sorry. Well, my name's Zion. I'm 14 years old. I'm a Christian rapper. I'm a pastor's kid, Amen. Let's go.
Yeah. Get it. First up. Go.
Industry Ready Production. USBF.com. Make your purchase now.
Feeling spirits when I get up in the morning. Get my mama downstairs as she calling me. I can take a weed breakfast with my family. It's a blessing, let me tell you how I got it so good. You know that I got it so good. It's a blessing, let me tell you how I got it so good. You know that I got it so good. You know that I got it so good. Hey, you said you never let me go. I keep believing that you love me cause you let me know. Hey, when I'm sick you got the antidote. When you throw it I receive it, call it, here we go. Lord, I'm taking the test and I need 100%, yeah. Wanna give you the best so you get 100%, yeah. It's me, my girl, we're looking for something new, yeah. Yeah, we at the school, we talk about you, yeah. That's a fact, sitting on these blessings, yeah. Following the one left, you keep giving all the love, and you never take it back, never take it back. You keep giving all the love, and you never take it back. Feel his presence when I get up in the morning. Hit my mama downstairs as she calling me. At the table eating breakfast with my family. It's a blessing, let me tell you how I got it so good. You know that I got it so good. It's a blessing, let me tell you how I got it so good. You know that I got it so good. You know that I got it so good. Hey, you know what's a blessing? It's a blessing. When you got people who like you. Hey, even if you don't feel love, whoa. The man on top of what we love, yeah. Look, I would never stop growing, but I keep going low, yeah. People calling my phone, yeah. No, I ain't gon' answer. If you're bringing that cancer, I walk and talk with my pants up, yeah. Feel his presence when I get up in the morning. Hear my mama downstairs, she calling me. At the Table with it, breakfast with my family. It's a blessing, let me tell you, oh my God, it's so good, 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 good. You know, oh my God, it's so good, 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 good. It's a blessing, let me tell you, oh my God, it's so good, 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 good. You know, oh my God, it's so good, 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 good. You know, oh my God, it's so good.
Who seen Like Mike, the movie Like Mike? Lil Bow Wow? You know, Lil Bow Wow puts on Michael Jordan shoes and he just gets Michael Jordan powers. I thought when I put this on, I was gonna get Pastor's powers. And be able to, and get all the good word to you guys so you guys are listening to it. But thank you all for coming out here today. Welcome to my podcast, our podcast, the People's Podcast called What Is Your Perspective? I believe the most unique thing about humans is that we have our own ability to have our own mind. We think differently, we create our own thoughts, and ultimately we're here to bring people together because everyone has different stories and backgrounds that shape their perspective, and people see the world differently and they see every situation differently. So we're here to create different dialogues to bring people together and understand each other. We were here to talk about mental health. And the thing about mental health is, I look at it, is our brains are our most powerful weapons, and we don't use our brains all the time. We don't think to go work out our brain. You know, we go to work out our muscles and work on our careers and work on all these other things, but we never think, let me go work on my brain or exercise my brain function. And I think that's something that we need to talk about. But the great thing about it is we definitely have been talking about it more. The stigma of therapy has definitely risen and gone away a little bit. So I'm humbled to have these individuals to come up here and share their stories and share kind of what they've gone through when it comes to mental illness. It's such a broad topic, but they're focused more on anxiety and depression. You know, I don't know, that's kind of the more prevalent one that people talk about. And some of these individuals have went through that. So we're here to talk a little bit about that. This is DeAntoine. Pastor already introduced them. Over here we have Jamal Anderson. He's my brother. I went to college with him. Best friend. We talk every single day about the Lord, about Christ, and I kind of was with him as he went through his journey. And then we have Mike over here. Mike, great man, does music. You guys got to check his music out. And we're going to talk a little bit about his story as well. But we'll start with you, Jamal. Correct me if I'm wrong. You went through a lot of anxiety, and you touched a little bit with depression, right?
Yeah, that's for sure.
When you were in that state, what did you feel like was going on? Explain to us exactly kind of what you were feeling when you were in that depressed state.
Well, in a nutshell, I mean, I've always been a believer. I've always had a relationship with the Lord, which has been the basis and the structure of my life, right? So when it was happening, I almost felt like, is this happening to me? You know, I'm praying to God, like, why do I feel differently? Like, what's going on? I've never experienced this before, right? So as it started to happen, naturally I wanted to pretend it wasn't happening. You know what I mean? So I began to feel it in my body. Now, obviously, as Nate said, I went to college with Nate. I played sports, played football with him. So my body was something that I was always in tune with. So when things started to feel differently, it really caught me off guard. And I think that's where it all started, was in my body.
Okay, so Mike, you had not really went through depression, but you had an anxiety attack.
Right.
So explain to us what happened during that anxiety attack, how you felt during that situation.
Well, first of all, good morning, church. But yeah, I was coming home from work one day. Well, it started at work. So I started feeling like weird. I had like this weird kind of feeling, and I just knew something was wrong. So I started heading home, and I texted my girlfriend. She's a LVN. I told her what was going on with me, and I'm not well versed in the situation. So, and in my mind, I was like, oh, I'm having a stroke. I'm about to have a heart attack, whatever. So I told her, and she said, well, you're okay. You know, I was feeling like a tingling in my body, like back of my head, all of that. She said, it's okay, just as long as you don't feel it in your right arm. Right when she said that, right arm. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna black out on the road, I'm gonna black out on the road. I finally get to her house, and I just sat, relaxed, took a breath. I got on Instagram, and somebody had posted something about anxiety. And so I feel like in a way, God kind of like put that there to be like, this is what's happening to you. I know you think this is what's going on, but this is what's really happening to you.
What about you, Ashley? You went through anxiety a little bit. Talk to us about the things that you felt as you were in those states.
I experienced anxiety and depression. Anxiety is something that I battle with daily. Yeah, and so that has to do with a lot of nerves, though, you know, like with daily activities, or like if, like my parents, they're not the healthiest people, so if I call them and they don't answer, I start to freak out, you know, like is something happening, are they okay? But, you know, I try to battle with more positive thoughts versus the negative ones, because I know that's just the devil trying to get in. As far as depression, it's like a feeling of hopelessness, not really understanding, because you know people say you have control over your mind. Well, why do I feel this? Why am I unhappy? I don't have a reason to be, or you know, it's like a sense of not really understanding what's going on mentally.
So Jamal, back to you. Let's talk about when you started realizing something was wrong with you. You started realizing things weren't right. When and how did you know something wasn't going right with you?
It was like a process. It wasn't like that specific day. It was working itself, kind of manifesting itself as my life continued to go on. And so what ended up happening, I will never forget. It was my mom's birthday. So of course this is the time where you want to celebrate. Of course my mom is living another year, so you want to be thankful. But I noticed my thoughts began to change. Like I wouldn't necessarily be as positive as I was before. I would focus more on the negative, kind of what you were saying. You start to feel the right arm. You think, okay, well, something's happening, right? So you start to focus more on those things, and it's sad because, you know, obviously we're in church. I want to go there. I want to take it there. You forget all of the things that God has put around you to be thankful for. And obviously, my mom's birthday. So why am I worried about what could be wrong when there's so many other things going on that's right? You know what I mean? So it was really just what was going on in my mind. I thought it was more of a physical thing, and then I realized like this is happening in my mind. You know, so once I noticed that, that was now my main focus, was to correct what was going on in my mind.
So Mike, you said you were really in a depressed state, but you had this one anxiety attack. Was it multiple?
Well, no, it was multiple, and not to like assume that the negative was as bad as it was, but I genuinely feel like I touched on depression in my brief stint with anxiety. Like, I'm naturally a fun-loving person. I'm a positive person. I always feel like if it'll happen, it'll happen. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So don't stress over it. But during this time of my life, I would have, as he said, negative thoughts. I wouldn't respond in the way that I normally respond, as far as like connecting with people, my family, my friends, you know. And so it was daunting. It was hard to get through life knowing that I'm not myself. So, and the dumbest thing I could have ever done was assume that I can get through it myself. Because the situation that I don't know much about, the least I should be doing is seeking help. And there's situations that I'm pretty versed on that I still ask God for help with. So for me to try to do this by myself without His help was probably the biggest mistake I ever made.
But what I want to figure out, and any one of you guys can answer this question, what was the thing that, what do you guys think led you to you guys feeling this way? Like, was it a failure or something that went on in life? Was it you just not being somewhere in life where you thought you would be? Like, what led you guys to start having these feelings that led to you guys going through this experience?
That's a good question. But to be honest, I had high goals that I set for myself. Playing football, I wanted to play professionally. Just overall, what I wanted to do in my life was not going the way that I thought it was going to. And I believe, you know, in my heart, it's unfortunate to think like that, but that's what I was going through. I started to doubt God. Like, God, why is this happening to me? For so long, everything's been going right. Now, why is everything going wrong? So because everything's beginning to go wrong, I lost trust in Him. And now everything's going wrong, you know what I mean? Like, if He's my foundation and I lose trust in Him, what do I have, right? So it was sports, it was family, it was all the things that I wanted in my life, and as they started to crumble, I mean, I was in a long relationship, the relationship stopped working, money was getting tighter and tighter, everything was just falling apart. And instead of me, you know, talking to God about what was going on, I became angry, I became bitter, and it just got worse. And I think that's where it all began, was instead of me dealing with what I was going through, I tried to ignore it and tried to think it wasn't my fault and blame everybody else and blame God, and it got worse.
Do you guys feel that way or go through that?
As for me, even when things go wrong, I feel like I always have to be strong, and I bottle things up because I can handle it, you know. There's nothing that God can give me that I can't handle, but then it comes to a point where that, you know, it's just it was just heavy on me, you know. So certain times where a lot of things aren't going right or everything's negative, then I start to get in the mind frame of constantly thinking negatively or always expecting the worst, or, you know, and it's a constant battle trying to get out of that, you know, that certain state.
I think for me, it was just the prospect of not knowing. I enjoyed being in the know, or, you know, knowing my situation and like knowing what I'm getting myself into. So the idea of not knowing the outcome of something is what really pushed me to stress over what I was doing. And it's kind of like a situation where it's like, part of me wants to be extremely confident, and then the other part of me wants to be humble and know, like, okay, there is a certain chance that this won't work out.
Yeah.
So because I fall in the middle, it's kind of like I'm just going through life, going through emotions.
Going crazy.
So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that was going on with me.
Okay, I know, I think Jamal, you touched on physically, like you were being affected physically. How did you being depressed, are you going through this anxiety affect your body physically? Did you gain weight? Did you lose weight? Did you lose sleep? How did it affect your body more than your mind and your spirit?
I remember going to the hospital freaking out, thinking something was wrong. And they did blood work, they did all type of tests. And the doctor almost comes out laughing, like, man, you're fine. You're actually really healthy, go home. And I remember thinking like, okay, well, go back in there and check something else, because something still doesn't feel right. So I was given medicine. And I remember having this conversation with God in the car, thinking to myself, if nothing's wrong with my body, why am I being given medicine, right? Nothing's happening in my body, they just went over that with me. Why am I being given medicine? So at this point, I don't want the medicine. I'm not gonna take it. As soon as I got home, I took the medicine, I put it in the trash and said, all right, God, we're gonna work this out. But it was still happening. I still was feeling and again, I played sports my whole life, and now I'm not working out at all. And I'm not realizing that I'm not working out. It's just, I'm just trying to get through the day at this point. So I'm not working out, I'm not eating right because I don't have an appetite, so I'm just going to whatever's around the corner just to put something in my stomach so I can try and rest. I wasn't sleeping. It was getting bad. I remember going to my mom's house. There was a moment, I don't even want to get sensitive thinking about it, but there was a moment where I just felt like, okay, I can't get past this, right? So it was in my mind, it was in my chest, and similar thing you were talking about, and I just remember feeling like God told me, go to your mom's house. So I just went to my mom's house. I couldn't sleep. I went into my bedroom. That was where I felt like I had the most intimate moments with God throughout my life. So I just felt like I need to run there. Like my mom's already took the bed out, everything. I slept on the ground, couldn't sleep. I listened to sermons to get myself to fall asleep. But I mean, it was everything. My whole body was off. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't work out, didn't have energy. I hardly had enough energy to get to work and then come back and get back in bed. So once, in my opinion, and from what I've experienced, once your mind becomes clouded, I feel like the war is in our mind, but our body is the battleground, right? So we're going to now feel the war that's going on in our minds, in our body, and it just really, it really shook me up. It shook me up.
How'd you feel about that?
I actually lost a lot of weight, and I don't know if you remember, but yeah, you remember, and a lot of my family used to make jokes about, not making fun of me, but they would be like, oh, you ate today? Because they weren't used to seeing me eat, because I had a loss of appetite for a very long time. And like if they would see me eat on a good day, even if I still would have finished my plate, they would be like, oh wow, did you know Ash ate today? And my mom, she knew. I mean, I remember us going to the doctors, because she was like, why is my baby losing all this weight? I'm already small. But you know, and then later on in life, like when I was in college, I slept a lot. Like when I was going through it in college, I slept a lot. Or I wouldn't sleep at night, and I would just be up, and then I would sleep all day. I'll find a way to skip class. I actually stopped going to work. No one really knew that, but I just wanted to just be in the little bubble that I was in, because it was hard to get out of it.
What about you, Mike? Living physically?
Yeah, and it's really crazy to be up here and then to hear people going through similar things.
Yeah,
because I thought I was alone in it, but he was explaining like the same exact things I was going through. But so the beginning of the year, I started off, I was 216 pounds. It was the heaviest I'd ever been. It wasn't muscle either. It was all fat. So it was weird. I think in 3 months I'd like lost, 2 months I'd lost like 20 pounds or 30 pounds or something like that. And it was shaking me up. So like, when you think something's wrong with you, I don't know if anybody else does this, but I instantly get on Google, I start typing in all these different things that's going on with me, and then the minute you see something like, cancer. Basically, I got cancer now.
Google will tell you you're gonna die today.
Yeah. So we went to the doctor's office, because I have this thing called oral migraines. I don't know if anyone knows what that is. So essentially, what happens is I'll see lights or whatever, and then 10 minutes later I'll get hit with a migraine, and I'm out for like the rest of the day. And I've never gotten one back to back. But during this time of my life, I would get one like every day, and my head would hurt all day. I mean, all day. So we went to the doctor's office, and he told me to my face, he said, well, I'm gonna let you know now, I'm not a neurologist, so I'm a surgeon, so instantly I'm gonna think tumor. I didn't hear the first part he said, I just heard tumor. So then we go to the neurologist. He tells me, okay, well, you have migraines. Have you passed out at all? Have you been having any seizures? I said, no. He said, well, if nothing's changed, then you're probably fine. He prescribed me some medicine. I said I didn't take it. And I just found myself by myself in the room. I hadn't slept for 3 days. I wasn't eating. I didn't know what was going on. And I honestly, I don't know what it was, but I just found myself talking more to older people, to the ones that are well-versed in the church. My mom, she was extremely into the church, and her friends would come over and he told me that, he said, I'll never forget his advice. He said, don't get so caught up in trying to be that you forget how to. And he said, what's going on with you now is you may not know what the outcome is, but God is telling you to ready the soil so that when he does give you that farm that you've been wanting, it'll be, So I took that advice. He sent me a 4-hour book thing, the audio, haven't gotten a chance to get through it. I won't lie about that. But yeah. But it was like this thing that's so strong in our mind was affecting my body. I still haven't gotten the weight back, but I mean, I guess that's a good thing. And I have gotten my appetite back, but it's so crazy how strong the mind is. The mind can convince the body of anything. So as long as you condition your mind to be strong and to know that where your help comes from, you're not going to be in that place that you were. So.
You actually went to try to get us clinically diagnosed and figure out what's going on. You didn't just, did you go to the doctor by any chance?
No, because I was telling myself there's nothing wrong with me and I was gonna be okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well that leads me to like, cause did you go to therapy, either of you? No therapy. And
My mom was like my therapist, no lie.
But I feel like there's a stigma on therapy or mental health in general, going to doctors. So when people kind of like Ashton, who just said that's really tough, we don't go to a doctor in this situation, or we don't go to a therapist in this situation. Do you guys have any thoughts maybe why that stigma is there?
I think the issue is in this society we live in, we're trying to push out God, right? We're trying to put our faith in the doctors as opposed to God. So the stigma lies in, okay, he went to school for it, so he has to know. That he's not the creator of man, so he doesn't really know how man works. He's just practicing. He's assuming that this is what's wrong with you, so this is what we're going to try to do to make sure you're okay. So,
I think when you look at it, it can come from so many different perspectives, but you know, especially being, all I know is I'm a man, I only know being a man, you've been trained, you know, don't ask for help, right? Like, just bury it and you'll be fine. And if there's anything that I've realized, and this is more something that I've been dealing with lately, is talk to God about it. Like, how can we expect him to fix it for us if we're scared to present it to him? Like, bring it to his light. His light will weaken it, and we have to talk about it with him. I can go to a therapist all day. I don't think it's a problem. Like, if anyone has a therapist, I don't think it's a problem, you know, seeing a therapist or seeking help. But I do believe those same conversations that you have with a therapist need to be those same conversations you have with your God. And I think that's, you know, that's where your help is going to come from.
Yeah.
So, Ashton, you just recently brought up how when you were going in your phase, you were losing a lot of weight and your family members were making fun of you and they're not really even realizing that you can't eat this because you're going through this situation. How did you guys, Jamal, did you have any experience where, how much did this affect your family members and people around you? Did you feel like they could understand what you were going through? Did you feel like they maybe didn't understand? Or maybe did it make your mom more depressed or more stressed out? Talk to me about your people that are close to you.
I think when it comes to anxiety and depression, the only people who can truly relate to you are those who experience it as well. I can go on all day and talk to you about what I'm feeling in my body, and somebody could look at me and be like, bro, you go to the gym every day, you're fine. And it's like, you don't know what I'm going through, so at this point, what am I to do but keep it underground and not speak about it, you know? So, you know, a lot of the times you're going, especially your family, because that's who you're around the most. If they don't relate to you, I mean, you can't, and I was guilty of this, you almost are mad at them because you're like, why aren't you related to me? Why don't you feel where I'm coming from? And it's like, they can't relate to you. And why would we, you know, have any harsh feelings towards them? Like, I'm thankful they're not going through this. I don't want you to go through this, you know? So a lot of the times you're not going to find that support, so that's when you need to be aware of what you're going through and find the right people to be around that can give you that support, because again, not everyone's going to see where you're coming from, and that's not a problem, but you need to be aware of that and you know, find a crowd that can help you out with that and kind of give you those positive vibes that you need, that's for sure.
So I pretty much isolated myself from others. I didn't talk a lot about it at all because I felt as if no one was going to understand. So I bottled it in. really, so it didn't really affect those around me because they didn't really know what I was going through besides my mom.
Twan, knowing that Ashley was going through this during this time, were you affected anyway by this?
Y'all probably think I'm like some prop up here. I ain't spoke yet. But what I will say is now kind of getting a better understanding on the whole mental health issue and things that go on about it. You know, I can admit that I was, and I still kind of insensitive to the topic because I don't feel like I go through it. I don't feel like I experience it. And some who know me may say I do in ways that I can't see, and I probably believe it. But as far as my relationship with my girlfriend, it was tough. I can't lie, it was tough. And if you ever have a partner or somebody that you're going through life with and they're experiencing those things, it's hard to get through because you don't understand the reason why they're not talking to you. Because a few months ago they might be okay and everything is good and everything is going smooth. And then all of a sudden you're just wondering why they texting you back every 6 hours. And they may be busy, but ain't nobody that busy in my head. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, what's going on? But not knowing that they're not talking to anybody. It's not just you. And I'm singling myself out. I'm feeling sorry for myself and not even worried about my girl who's going through way more than I can even understand. So it's just a tough situation to kind of deal with. But as you learn to understand the person, because that's what you're supposed to be in a relationship for, right? You're going to be able to completely understand your partner and grow together and things like that. So as I was able to humble myself and realize that it's not really about me and that it's about her and she's the one who I need to be paying attention to. If I say that I'm not affected by it and I'm so good, then why don't I, put the little effort that I have and, pushing her forward and letting her know that she's okay and everything's going to be good, because she has to be able to see all the great things that she's accomplishing, getting her degree in college, finishing with a 4.0, just doing really, really great things. And it's hard for her to see that because she's so worried about everything else and her mind is not, all the way there, like as far as like, feeling about the negatives and things like that, like she's talked about. So, I'm here, I was supposed to be there to push forward the positives, but I was creating more problems. So you just gotta be very aware of that when you're dealing with those situations.
Water young man. Mike, what about you? Did it affect you in your relationship or with your parents or siblings by any chance?
It did. Not so much my older brother. He and I, thank God, we never really fought. But with my mom, we argue often, but it's only because we're basically the same person. So, in her mind, she's looking at it, she's already there. She's further along in her walk with Christ than me. So she's already at the point where she's like, well, maybe it's God trying to put this obstacle in your way so you can seek Him. Maybe you steered away from Him a little too long. So she was the one that was pushing me to just talk to God about it. As far as my relationship, we argued a little more. It was only because I feel like, in a way, I mean, my love didn't change, but the way I expressed it, or maybe I don't respond in the way that I should be responding, or maybe I don't put as much care into her needs because I'm so worried about my own. So the selfishness in that put a little bit of a wrench, but we got past it, we were fine now. But it's crazy. It's crazy what this can do for your relationships with people. And I encourage like anybody who's dealing with that to sit down with their loved ones and talk about it and try to get through it, because the last thing we want is to lose that connection because of ourselves.
Definitely. You guys keep bringing up God, so let's transition to that. Did you ever, any of you guys ever feel, and I know you kind of made a comment about it earlier, Jamal, God, why am I going through this? Why are you putting me through this? Did that ever arise? Because I know those questions arise when we go through terrible trials of our lives where we're like, God, why me? Why me at this situation? You know I was right here and then you just throw this at me. Did you ever get that sting?
It's funny because I still do. You know what I mean? I'm still praying over and ask why, right? And I believe, you know, in my walk with the Lord, if we don't get anything else out of this sit down, I pray that this, you know, sticks with everyone in this room. But I felt like the Holy Spirit told me, you're asking me why instead of asking me how can I fix this, right? You're like, so you're so upset that this is happening that you're not asking me what should I do, you know? So I felt like each day or every week, let's say, I would get like a new revelation on what I should do. And one thing I'm big on now, and I'm like huge on, you know, I've been talking to you about it, is speaking. I think anytime you get in that place where you're in anxiety and you're in depression, you don't say anything. And the word says life and death is in the power of the tongue, which means our tongue has power. So why are we not speaking? So what I would do is I would literally get up every day and I would speak health over myself. I would speak favor over myself. I would truly do that every single day.
But then I went through an abuse relationship, so I had to open up.